design meeting, I wanted to, you know, Jeannie and Pat said, what do you really want to talk about here? What are the themes? What are the stories? And I wanted to emphasize that these are not scrap quilts. These are products of elegance and leisure. They're things of beauty with intentional design, and we need to give credit to the women who were designing and making these. It's a cooperative process. We know that women often stitch together. Quilting bees aren't necessarily the story. Sometimes people would have the quilting bee in the party, but also it was just whoever was in the household was stitching. And in this area, talking about Maryland and Virginia quilts, something you really don't hear a lot of people talking about, and I wanted to bring that out, was you can almost guarantee there were African-American hands working on a lot of these quilts. And because we know the makers, we can look at who's in the household, we can see if there were free or enslaved people. Some of the stories very specifically mention African-American workers, and so we wanted to talk about that. And so let's bring out the fact that one of the strengths of this collection is knowing the provenance. I wanted to also say, tying in with the elegance, the latest imported fabrics and latest dyeing and printing technology were available not just in Baltimore and other port cities and large cities, but to rural markets too. Wanted to talk a little bit about the technology and the migration of designs so that it's not just Maryland and Virginia, but people emigrating out of this area are bringing those designs elsewhere. So that's a lot of different sub-themes to talk about, but Pat and Jeannie took it and rolled with it. My approach is obviously very far on the opposite end of the spectrum from an exhibit like this beautiful and fabulous exhibit at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston last year, Quilts and Color, the Pope&Roy collection, where each section introduced concepts of optical illusions, or this color theory or that color theory, and then would have a piece of abstract artwork to show how it played out in art, and then you saw quilts that played out the same thing. This is a perfectly valid way of looking at quilts. You put them on the wall, you treat them as abstract art. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted quilts as artifacts of social history. Our challenges were that we have this long, narrow gallery. We have racks for 8 quilts. We have wall space for 10 if you just use the walls in the traditional way. I wanted to use 36 quilts. Obvious challenge there. Some are quite fragile, and so we needed to put them on slant boards, and so I came up with an economical and, I think, creative way of solving that issue. Obviously, we needed to bring these off of the wall and have them more freestanding. If that's the case, then how are we going to protect them from visitors being able to touch? Now, if you really are an obnoxious visitor, yes, you can reach in and touch the quilt. But we think we've put enough visual and physical barriers there to try to, and we still put the signs, please do not touch the quilt. Failing being able to put everything behind plexiglass, that was a challenge. Working with the existing gallery formation, not a lot of money for architectural changes because of a somewhat limited budget. How are we going to use the quilt racks in the back? I didn't want that just to be the B-list quilts. I didn't want them just shunted off to the back. But how can we